In today's video, I will be discussing the healing process, a few reflections that I have on it, and some tips to make it more bearable. I made a video recently on what I've learned through my healing journey. I will link the video down below so you can see it. And I got a lot of feedback about this one picture that I showed about the healing journey. This inspired quite a few conversations on the journey itself. It also made me think and realize that we don't really talk about this journey. We tend to think in terms of either sick or healthy, wellness, illness, but that gray area in the middle is not discussed so much. So let's say that you've been diagnosed with an illness, you've read up a little bit on it, now you're at the point where you're experimenting with various things, maybe different medications or different lifestyle interventions, etc. So effectively, you're now on your healing journey. So let's talk about this journey. First off, healing takes time. I'll often offer free discovery calls where people are able to explore and see if we're a good fit and if I could help. I really enjoy doing these calls and getting to meet new people, but what I also find really interesting about these calls is people often share what they're currently doing, what they need more of, where they are. And a lot of times people will come and tell me something that has worked for them, but it's something that they're perhaps not consistently doing because they notice, oh, it only works for a little bit of time, the effects are not long lasting, or because they feel like they're not motivated enough to keep going with it. So this is where I think it's super important to remember that healing does take time. There are very few quick fixes, and oftentimes it's not like you just have to take one pill or you implement this one magical lifestyle treatment and overnight you're better. Sometimes you need to implement and just have patience. Even something like a dietary change can take weeks to make an effect in the body and months to actually see a noticeable improvement in the health as a result of it. So I think we're more used to pills, which have a quicker effect. But when you're working with the natural workings of the body, it takes a bit of time for either neurons to be rewired, for changes to be seen, for healing to happen in the body. So it's a process and it cannot be rushed. It takes times, and there's many ups and downs within this process. It's not very linear. So it can sometimes feel like you're going backwards. But even in those moments when it feels like you're going backwards, you might actually be going forward, as you've now tried that one thing. You're wiser, you know more about whether that one treatment or therapy is right for you. And let's say you've implemented a new healthy habit, you now have a way of implementing further healthy habits successfully. You have a track record. You know what works and what doesn't work for you. And although it's not always easy to be patient, rushing through the process does not do much, so do not give up. I broke my foot 2 years ago, and the process was quite simple. I had a cast, then once the cast came off, I was given some physical therapy exercises to do, and then within 6 months, my foot felt just like before. With chronic illness, it's not so simple at all. With me, my symptoms started with high heart rate, which was during the summers only for a few years. So for those few years, I focused on the heart, I focused on seeing cardiologists, and then I was finally diagnosed with POTS. Then I started having more symptoms that affected me neurologically, that affected my gut, that affected my muscles, that affected a lot of other parts of my body. And each of these problems took different approaches to different modalities to work with. And I couldn't do it all at once. So sometimes I would have to focus a lot more on one, then another, and so on. So that's where healing is multidimensional. So pay attention also to the parts that you perhaps don't want to work with, and also just reflect on that. Some people, for example, really struggle with dietary changes. They avoid going anywhere near that direction. So if there is some kind of resistance about perhaps one change that you're not feel that comfortable to be doing, reflect on that, see where the resistance is coming from, see what's going on over there. And with focusing on all these modes of health and of the body, don't forget to focus on your mental health as well. I focused a lot on the physical effects and I ignored, I think, or just pushed down a lot of the emotional effects that it had on me, that it had on my thoughts, on my abilities, on my self-esteem, on my identity. So don't ignore that. Pay attention to that part as well. And have grace with yourself as you remember and tackle each of those areas. I remember I used to feel so overwhelmed. It felt like I had to do so much. But take baby steps and be kind to yourself as you go through this. Having said that, you can only do so much on your own. Sometimes it takes a third party, whether that is a friend, a specialist, a coach, a therapist, a relative, etc., to share a light and a new direction. So don't be afraid to reach out for help when you need it. We could sometimes only ever see so much on our own, and it helps when we have others who can see us and who can see our situation from a different lens. What are your blind spots? What are new things you could try? It's both needed that we do the work ourselves, of course, but sometimes it's needed to reach out to others for help. And as you are now on this journey, reflect on how can you make the best of it. Look for what lessons can you learn from this. I think a lot of us want to rush this process because it's not comfortable to stay here for too long. We want to get past the physical or emotional suffering, but what can we do in this in-between period of space? How can we sit with the pain and suffering, at least temporarily? And this actually goes hand in hand with the bigger question of what makes a meaningful life. Research has found that suffering and sadness are necessary ingredients for happiness. Without some level of pain, we have no real way to achieve and appreciate the kind of happiness that is true and pure. So pleasant and happy moments do make a happy life, but it's the meaning that we associate to the difficulties and hard trials within our life that also shape it into this narrative and story that we have in our own head on what it does mean to have a life full of meaning. And not just reflecting on the bigger picture of the journey itself, but zooming in on the day-to-day. What is there and what can you find in the day-to-day to appreciate? Perhaps it's the way that the sun came out today. Today here is very sunny and I'm very much enjoying it. Or that you were able to walk a bit further now than you were a month ago. Or perhaps that you had a great conversation with a friend or a family member. Even if it's a small win or a big win, no matter the size of the win, it's a win. So be grateful for it. Don't be, not necessarily, I'm not saying to be grateful for the illness itself, but for what it showed you about yourself. How can you use this opportunity to understand yourself better, as well as to get to know your strengths, your weaknesses, and yourself? You're a lot stronger than you think you are, and you could deal with adversity probably a lot better than you thought you were able to do. And this experience is showing you how. Appreciate every single little step that you are making. It requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of strength. Acknowledge that. Really do acknowledge that and sit with it, reflect on it. And if there's any slip-ups or downhill slopes in the journey, remember that this path is not necessarily one of perfection and everything has to go a certain way. But it is just filled with just ups and downs. I hope that you found this video helpful. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway down in the comments below. What has been your biggest reflection from the healing journey? Let me know. And if you want more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you hit the bell, you'll get a notification each time I post a new video. Take care, and I'll see you next time.